Come one, come all, and welcome to the Movie Reviewers 100. My name is Scott. I do the Thursday videos on this collaboration channel. Our theme this week is movies and individuals who work in the movies who did not get Oscar nominations for stuff they clearly deserve to, at least in our opinion anyway. Last couple of years I talked about movies that got no Oscar nominations, but I wanted to cite specific examples of nominations that were missed out on. EJ did a video, I think it was his top 10 favorite movies that didn't win a Best Picture nomination, and I like that idea a lot. I sort of have my own little spin on that, I guess you could say. Not really a top 10, but I'm just going to be going through an assortment of different categories and talking about a few things and people that I thought should have been nominated. First of all, Best Original Score. Something I'm very interested in, have enjoyed movie scores in and of themselves for a long time. And one in particular that I felt really sort of elevates the movie is Alan Silvestri's score for The Quick and the Dead. This is a Western, basically, directed by Sam Raimi. Sharon Stone's the main character, sort of a Clint Eastwood type. Gene Hackman's the villain. Leonardo DiCaprio's also in it. And this is a fun movie, you know, a good escapist movie, but the score really brings it to a higher level for me. It's kind of a Mexican-flavored score, I guess you could say, the music is. Spanish guitars, trumpets, the occasional whip crack. The whole thing is just really delightful. There's a couple of recurring themes that are really great. There's a couple of standalone pieces that are really, really nice. Just an overall really terrific score that, you know, was missed out on just because it's, you know, over-stylized Western, you know, with Sharon Stone. Not the kind of Oscar bait that normally, not the kind of movie that normally is considered Oscar bait. Plus it came out like at the very beginning of the year, so that never helps. But it's a terrific score. One that certainly, you know, as I said, elevates the movie beyond what it is. Visual effects is something that I'm very interested in. I was super pleased when Ex Machina won Best Visual Effects this year. You know, I didn't think it stood much of a chance against Star Wars and The Revenant and Mad Max, but it won on a $15 million budget. I think that might have been one of the reasons why. It's because they were so seamlessly integrated. The digital effects that allowed body parts of Alicia Vikander to be replaced with translucent robot parts. And on such a small budget, I think they sort of took that into consideration and gave it the award, which was exciting. A couple movies that I felt missed out on the nomination when they didn't deserve to were the two Matrix sequels. Of course, the first Matrix movie not only was nominated, but won. In fact, it beat out The Phantom Menace for Best Visual Effects. But the second and third movies, which both came out in 2003, didn't even get a nomination, and I thought that was really bizarre. Because although we look back on some of those effects and think, well, they're a little cheesy, especially the CGI versions of Hugo Weaving and Keanu Reeves that fight in the second movie, overall it's a very strong effects picture, and there's a lot of them. I just felt that it ought to have at least been nominated, at the very least, especially Revolutions, the third movie. What won that year? It was the third Lord of the Rings movie, of course. You know, and you know, plenty of great effects in that movie, but not to even get a nomination for the Matrix sequels, I thought was just, yeah, very disappointing. Best Cinematography. I'm a longtime fan of David Fincher's film Seven. There were so many aspects of that movie that I thought deserved nominations, but would never get them just because the Academy likes more uplifting stuff rather than really grim stuff. A couple nominations I thought it should have got. One for makeup effects, because they're crucial and very, very good, but also Best Cinematography. Darius Kanji was the cinematographer on that movie, and they used this, what they called a front silver process, where they added silver back to the print to make it darker, to make the blacks blacker. Such a visually striking movie, just really, really impressive, and not nominated. It got one nomination for Best Editing. That was it. I should have gotten a lot more, I felt, especially for cinematography and makeup. Speaking of editing, there was a Steven Soderbergh movie that came out in 1998 called Out of Sight, which was a favorite of mine, and it got a nomination for editing, but the movie that he did the year later, The Limey, did not, which was really disappointing. The Limey is if you're familiar with the French film Last Year in Marienbad, it's quite a lot like that. There's a lot of jumping around in time, and normally you have entire scenes that are mixed up, but these are like individual moments, particular shots that are all mixed up. And it works beautifully, it really does. And there's a scene where actually there's the same conversation filmed between two characters, but in 3 different locations, and they just go back and forth between the locations without any real explanation. It would seem absurd, but it works great. It works really great. And I thought that Sarah Flack, who edited that movie, should have gotten a nomination for that, but she didn't. Original screenplay. Both of the sequels to Before Sunrise, the Richard Linklater film with Julie Delpy and Ethan Hawke, both of them received nominations for adapted screenplay. Even though they weren't really adapted from anything, they were just basically taking the same 2 characters and making another movie with them. Apparently that qualifies for adapted screenplay because supposedly it's adapted from, as they say, work that was previously published or produced. And in this case, it's a sequel, so that makes it an adapted screenplay? Not really. But the first film, Before Sunrises, didn't get a nomination for screenplay, and it was definitely an original screenplay, and that I thought was well-deserved. Also, Reservoir Dogs by Quentin Tarantino, and Scream by Kevin Williamson. Both very, very clever screenplays, should have gotten nominations. But they're not the type of movie that would get a nomination. Before Sunrise is, though. Before Sunrise is definitely the type of movie that ought to get an Oscar nomination, but didn't. As for adapted screenplay, I have always been impressed with V for Vendetta. Lana Andy Wachowski adapted the Alan Moore graphic novel. Even though Alan Moore refused credit on the movie, it's still adapted, obviously. And they did a great job. I've read the book, and they did a terrific job of just boiling it down to the essentials and keeping all the important aspects of it. Making some changes, yes, but a terrific script, a terrific adaptation of the graphic novel V for Vendetta. So that definitely should have been nominated. Best Director. I forgot to check to see if Darren Aronofsky was nominated for Best Director for Requiem for a Dream. I'm pretty sure that he wasn't. One person who definitely wasn't nominated was Joss Whedon for The Avengers. Now, again, The Avengers is not the kind of movie that normally gets Oscar nominations, but when you look at the thing that Joss Whedon had to do, to get all the different characters, get them screen time, get us invested in them, balance out all the things, get this really complicated plot working, all the elements and everything like that, and gather it all together, and not only make it work, but make it fun, and make it move fast, and keep the pacing light, and, everything just works great in that movie. That's really down to him. It's a good script, but, he really brought it together very, very well. And I've always loved Joss Whedon, and I was super impressed with the work that he did on The Avengers. Not so much the second movie, of course that one was an even tougher job, and it ended up just not working as well for me. Mostly because there's so many plot points that had to be conveyed really quickly in order to keep the film moving. It just made my head spin, whereas The Avengers, I was with it every second of the way, and it really, really worked beautifully. So, I thought that he could have gotten a nomination for that. I thought that the Academy could have recognized his work there. Best Supporting Actor. Last year when I saw Ex Machina, I thought, oh my goodness, I hope Oscar Isaac gets a Best Supporting Actor nomination for this movie. He's great, and he didn't. It got a couple other nominations, the movie, but not for him, which is too bad. He's the CEO, basically, of this search engine called Blue Book in the movie. Incredibly wealthy guy. He has this compound out in the middle of nowhere where he invites Domhnall Gleeson to join him to test the personality, I guess, of his artificial intelligence, played by Alicia Vikander. But he's great in the movie. He's boisterous. He's just larger than life. He's great. He's terrific in the part. Yeah, I really thought, man, I want to see that guy get a nomination for Ex Machina, but he didn't. Too bad. Best Supporting Actress. Back in 1995, I saw this Gus Van Sant film called To Die For with Nicole Kidman. She's an aspiring TV personality who marries Matt Dillon, and she just wants fame and she'll do anything to get it. Matt Dillon's sister is played by Ileana Douglas, and I've liked her for a long time. She's been in a few Scorsese movies, but she was great in this movie. Really, really terrific. She's sort of outside the action a lot of the time. She sort of gets like this passive-aggressive brush-off from Nicole Kidman a lot of the time. She sort of looks down on her. And she sort of takes it in stride. She takes it with humor and sarcasm. She's a terrific actress, and she was terrific in that movie. To die for. Really, really, it's too bad that she didn't get a nomination for that. Best Actor. Let's not cry too much for Leonardo DiCaprio. After all, he's incredibly good-looking and wealthy, and he's done a lot of terrific movies, and he finally got his Oscar after many nominations for The Revenant. But one nomination that he didn't get that he thought he really should have deserved was Catch Me If You Can, the Steven Spielberg movie. He plays a teenager. This is in 2002, a teenager who basically just ditches his school and his life and goes on the road and becomes a con artist impersonating airline pilots and doctors and lawyers and all kinds of stuff. You know, one of those a lot of roles I thought that he got during that period were not well suited to him. He just doesn't look all that formidable as, say, you know, a mercenary in Blood Diamond, or you know, a gang member in Gangs of New York or something. You know, I mean, it was hard to take him seriously as those tough guys. But of Catch Me If You Can, I thought he was very well suited to that part, and he was terrific in that movie all throughout. And so, you know, that would have been a nomination I would have liked to see him get. Also, I want to mention Johnny Depp and Ed Wood. Thought he was terrific in that movie. And a longtime favorite of mine is a character actor named Eric Bogosian. He's been on Law & Order: Criminal Intent in a supporting part for a long time. He was a former stage actor, and he had a play of his adapted for the screen by the director Oliver Stone called Talk Radio, and he played the main character in that, a talk show host in Dallas, Texas. And it's just a powerful performance, man. He really is just like a powerhouse throughout the whole thing. Very, very strong personality, abrasive a lot of the time. Yeah, really would have liked to see him get a nomination. But despite the fact that Oliver Stone was very big at that time, he had just done Platoon and Wall Street prior to that. The movie was small scale and really didn't get a lot of people's attention, so no nomination for him or pretty much anybody else on that movie, I'm pretty sure. And finally, Best Actress. Quentin Tarantino, of course, has made a lot of actors give some of their best work and gotten them nominations, but someone who missed out on nomination was Pam Grier for Jackie Brown. There's a lot of great performances in that movie, but the only person to get a nomination was Robert Forster. No nomination for Sam Jackson, no nomination for anybody, not even Pam Grier, who's the main character, and she was terrific in that movie. Her last scene in the movie where she speaks with Robert Forster and then gets in her car and sings along with Across 110th Street, one of my favorite scenes ever. And she's great in that movie. She's really terrific. I haven't really seen a lot of Pam Grier, but yeah, it's probably, you know, I would imagine it's among her best work right there. It's a great movie. I also want to just mention Carrie Fisher for The Empire Strikes Back. The acting is not necessarily thought of as especially strong in the Star Wars movies, even the original movies, but in Empire Strikes Back, she was totally on her game, and, you know, she made, you know, had great chemistry, of course, with Harrison Ford. Yeah, it's too bad. Other people that I really liked, Uma Thurman in the Kill Bill movies. You know, it's a big action movie, not going to get a nomination. Laura Dern for Citizen Ruth. Scarlett Johansson for Match Point, the Woody Allen film. Charlize Theron for Young Adult. Elizabeth Olsen for Martha Marcy May Marlene. Martha May Marlene. I forget exactly how that goes. They were all really good, but especially Pam Grier in that movie. Finally, Best Picture. My favorite film from 2014 was Under the Skin, which is a weird sort of low-budget sci-fi movie. Scarlett Johansson plays a person who is not human, and she's wandering around Scotland, driving around looking for men to sort of pick up and take back to her place where she can harvest their organs. The movie is terrific overall. Scarlett Johansson's really good. But it's just such an ominous picture, and so much of it is unsaid and unexplained. And yet, you can't help but understand everything that's happening. It's just really, really compelling. And by far, my favorite film of that year. And so I was disappointed that it didn't get an Oscar nomination, but not a lot of Oscar buzz around that particular movie, which is too bad. So those are my little picks right there. Movies from various categories and years that I thought could have got nominations, really deserved them, but didn't get them. So thank you very much for watching. Please be sure and watch Alan and EJ's video. They both did one on this topic, movies that did not get nominations and should have. and we'll be back with another theme very, very soon. Stay tuned for that. Please subscribe to us if you haven't so far. Visit our Facebook page and our Instagram page. Those links are below in the description. Thank you very much for watching. See you again real soon.